Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the brand new tier list for 1412. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. Come by, check out the stream. We're going to try to stream pretty much every night from around 10:30 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time till about 12:30 or 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's friendly, chill, fun community. So come by, talk about League, talk about life, whatever you want to talk about. Come on in and join us. It's always a good time. And I'm going to see if I can do an ADC tier list again for this patch as well. And hopefully over the next couple of weeks, I can do some updated guides. I know some of my guides are pretty old at this point, like 4 or 5 years. So at least some of the champions I've been playing a lot recently, I'd like to do some updated guides for. So like Rakan, Tahm, Braum, and maybe some other ones if you guys are enjoying it. But okay, let's go ahead and get in here. Let's start with these patch notes. Now, last time I kind of failed on this front. I was like, I'll just go over the patch notes for like 5 or 10 minutes. But we'll actually try to go over them just really quickly, just as it pertains to support. And then we'll move in. There are a couple of interesting shifts. Not necessarily like in the entire support meta, but in some of the itemization things, specifically around Warmogs, that we'll talk about here in a little bit. Okay, so let's start off with the patch notes. Aatrox getting a couple of changes. I don't think that's going to affect support that much. It's getting a little bit more healing. Yeah, I don't think it's going to matter. There are lots of good bruisers top. He's one among many. I think top lane is very strong right now. And champs that can play around that pretty well are going to benefit. Okay, and then Akali getting some changes. Don't think it's going to matter. Akshan. Action, whatever. Some people call him Unction. It's like, what? But anyway, I'm not sure anyone really knows how to pronounce him. But, okay, some minor changes. I don't think it's going to matter. Ashe. Now, Ashe is really good in the bottom lane right now. I think a lot of high-end players play her as support, but I think she's got a high win rate in the traditional ADC carry role as well. Just a lot of damage, scales really well with Kraken. Obviously, it has great utility with the slows, the CC on the ult, and even the hawk shot to track the jungler. All of that's very nice. So historically, Ashe has had lower top-end damage because she has so much utility. But lately, she's had quite a lot of damage with kind of the Kraken builds out there. So let's see what they're doing here. Damage against targets with Frost. Okay. So it had been 120% base. Now it's 115. So she basically does 15% extra damage on her auto attacks after the first one. Or if you open up with your W. And I think people were getting like Trinity Force on her too, which I thought was kind of weird. But I talked about it in the last ADC video. It actually, a lot of the stats do make sense. She does have a very low cooldown on that W, so she can spam abilities fairly quickly. And she just likes that movement speed and just kind of all of the stats that it gives. So Trinity, still going to be a great item on her. Kraken, still going to be a great item as well. So she's got kind of a weird itemization path, but still going to be pretty strong. So let's see. Yeah, well, looks like people not doing the Trinity thing anymore? Maybe not. It looks like Static is actually pretty nice, but most people aren't going to be getting that as early. No, Trinity's still the most popular second item, even though Phantom Dancer has a slightly higher win rate right now. It just kind of depends on what you need. But the extra ability haste, especially if you're, making plays with your arrow pretty frequently, is a nice sort of quality of life that you don't get off of most other items. And just stuff like having the extra health, the extra attack speed, all that's pretty handy. Okay. Blitzcrank, a little bit less health. Okay, so that's pretty significant because in very early levels, if you all in him, because his hook is nice, but there are some other supports that can kind of match his damage early on if you pull him in, especially some of the other tanks out there. So this will allow people to fight back a little bit more, especially early on. And then his mana barrier lasts for 10 seconds. What? That's crazy. Why does it last 10 seconds? Okay, I'm not sure what they're thinking there. Okay, anyways. Alright, fine. I think Blitzcrank is okay. I don't think he's like OP or anything, but he's just a very matchup and skill dependent champion, right? If you're against a bunch of squishies that don't have a lot of mobility and you consistently hit your hooks, he's probably the best support in the game. If you're against a bunch of tanks or a bunch of mobility and you can't hit a lot of hooks, then he's one of the most worthless supports in the game. So, lives or dies by the hooks. I do think that the change to Mobies maybe hurt him a little bit, but a lot of blitzes were still getting swiftness boosts anyways, so I think he's pretty good. I think I actually have him in S just because there are so many squishies. Although he is matchup dependent, it's totally possible I should put him down in an A tier. I wouldn't argue with that necessarily, but I still think most of the ADCs are probably still going to be pretty immobile, although things like Zeri and Ezreal have been getting more popular. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and nudge him down. I'm going to nudge him down in A tier after the nerfs, and just because there are a few more mobility ADCs that are becoming popular. So if we do, like, top picked champs here, so far, Kai'Sa's mobile, Ezreal's mobile, Caitlyn to some extent, if she nets correctly, can dodge it, but a lot of Caitlyn's probably won't. Lucian's mobile. But there's still, like, a pretty good amount, right? Like, Ashe, Jhin, Jinx. It's all going to be opportunities there. But there is more mobility now than there was as far as what people are picking. It's not just all Jinx and Caitlyn every game. Okay, Corki getting some nerfs. He has been pretty strong. In, like, Pro, he's getting played a lot. I think his win rate in solo queue wasn't insane, but it was pretty good. Okay, so getting a lot of nerfs. This should probably hurt him quite a bit, because I just don't think he was so strong that he needed, like, 10 nerfs that he's getting here. But it shouldn't affect support. There aren't really that many special supports that he's good with. He's better with engaged supports probably than enchanters, because he doesn't scale super well off of like attack speed and on-hit items. People have been mostly building him as lethality, so, and those champs are still going to be strong. So I don't think it's going to affect the support matter too much. Ezreal is getting more scaling on his quick shot. Now his win rate is not up that much yet. We'll see. It's obviously like super early days, but is he getting a lot of? So he's just back on that Trinity Mirror Mana. Now Karma's getting a buff too, and Ezreal is historically, like, that's one of his favorite champs to kind of push and poke with. So that does edge up some pressure champs like Karma. His wave clear is okay early on, but it's not as good as some of the other pressure champs like Caitlyn, Jinx to some extent, at just kind of pushing the lane, going for that push and poke early, but it's still pretty good. So that gives a little bit of a nudge to things like Karma, Lux, those types of poke supports get a little bit better if Ezreal is in the meta. Okay, and then we've got the Karma changes here. So her shield, I thought this would be a lot more impactful. I really wanted to put Karma in tier 2, but her win rate is just not, it's just not showing up yet. Maybe it will later on in the patch, but she's getting 20 extra shield, which is really nice. Now, a lot of people have been maxing Q and are going for the Malignance build for kind of like really leaning into that poke, versus historically people have done like 3 points of Q in lane and then max shield for team fights later. But they are giving the shield more, the baseline shield, and the upgraded Defiant shield is up 30 now. So that's a lot of shield. And you get that bonus movement speed, going from 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds. Now, I thought this was a very big deal because years ago, I think it was season 9 or something, when they did something like this with Karma, they buffed her shield and the movement speed. I don't remember if it was 2 seconds or 2.5 seconds, but that just took her from like C tier to S tier. Like, that movement speed was so massive. Now, I think she used to give full speed to everybody off of Defiance, though. Now I think it's only like a third of the speed. And so it still lasts 2 seconds, but it's not as fast as it used to be. Something like that. But nevertheless, anytime they start messing with her speed, usually that buffs her up a lot. So I think she'll move up a little bit. I could definitely see her maybe being like tier 2. I don't know if I would quite put her in S. But she is very good at, push and poke early and then transitioning into team fights later. She's kind of hard to run down as an enchanter and kill, so she has a bit more survivability with, getting the speed and the shield on her E, but then also being able to do the empowered W for the big heal. But she doesn't have any buffs for her allies, so she doesn't increase ally attack speed or, damage or anything like that. Like a Lulu, Janna, all of those champs are going to have buffs for the attack, or like Melio with buffing the range. She just doesn't give any buffs to anybody, so that's where she kind of falls off against other enchanters later on in the game. And against engaged champs, she doesn't have very good peel, right? Like, she's got her shield, but if they just, chain CC, your 80 carry, and you have no way to get them off, you've just kind of got your W, which is a delayed route. That's problematic. So she can give out speed. She's got the shields, but her peel is a little sus. She doesn't have any buffs, and so that kind of puts her in a weird spot against enchanters and engaged champs if you get to later portions of the game. But really good if you're ahead, just pressing your advantage, rotating around the map, all that stuff. Just having basically a Shirelia's on your ult. Malignance is obviously good if you want to kind of go for some more poke. If you're thinking of poking out supports, though, Warmog's very popular. We'll talk about that in a little bit. That is going to hurt her. It's one less person you can poke, and they can kind of eat a lot of those empowered Qs potentially. Okay, and then Master Yi, bonus damage to monsters going up or going down a little bit. So they're nerfing him. I thought he was pretty good in some matchups, but he's relatively okay. I think it's fine. Not going to affect supports. Nefari, whatever. We'll just go through. Extremely rare champ. You don't see her that often. If they're buffing her up, that's probably fine. Yeah, give her a little bit of extra. Neela, health regen and armor's up. I don't think this is going to matter that much. She's okay, but not amazing. Just melee 80 carries it's just kind of problematic. Just creates a lot of issues with spacing and things like that. But if you are ahead, she can work. I think if you do want to play off of someone who likes to, really get in there, I'd probably play Samira instead. I think she does a lot more damage. But, Neela can work if you're good on her, especially with, melee supports. Rek'Sai getting a couple of changes. That's fine. It's not going to matter. Skarner. Now, a lot of people are saying this champ's really broken. I have not seen that in solo queue, although he is getting played a lot in pro. What's the... I know his play rate. It feels like he's in every game. Let me see. But I haven't seen it. I mean, he does have a really powerful kit, but I don't know. Maybe people are just messing it up in my games. I just haven't witnessed it. What's his win rate in solo queue? We might time out there on that site. But it's 51% win rate. So, he's good, but I don't know. For most people that are Emerald minus, which is, my target audience for these tier lists, I don't know. He's okay. He's getting a couple of nerfs here. A little bit less damage, a little bit less survivability. I think it's fine. Okay. Talon getting a couple buffs. That's okay. Shouldn't affect support. Trandomir getting some nerfs. This champ's just really obnoxious when he is in the meta, so it's cool they're tapping him a little bit. I think he'll still probably be pretty good at, just what he does. I think he's fair. He just kind of forces your team to have CC and forces you to rotate to help if he gets ahead for side lane pressure. Just a very pure, 1v1 duelist in the side lane that doesn't do much else versus something like Camille that is a really good duelist, very good escapes, actually kind of tanky, difficult to kill, can be reasonable in team fights for locking down backline. I think Camille is a lot more problematic than something like Trandomir in a lot of cases. Although Trandomir can be really overwhelming if it gets super far ahead. Okay, wild cards have a little bit less AP ratio. I mean, aren't there people that don't even level that up in top lane, or they'll just put 1 point in it because people just do the on hit thing with Kraken or Static Shiv or whatever top lane. Okay, W, pick a card. Costs a little bit more mana, so he's not going to be able to pressure with it as much early, but he usually does blue card, right? like just to harass early on. I don't know. I don't know his mana restrictions, but I know that the top lane doesn't get any mana items. So maybe this matters for that build. I think mid lane TF is not amazing right now. He's okay. I don't know. That's fine. They'd probably tap him down. I mean, he is getting played a ton in pro. This isn't really affecting his damage too much, but it might affect how long he can stay out in wave clear if he has to blue card a little bit more instead of red card, and if that plays into, you know, how fast he can clear with the static shiv or whatever. That's, if that slows him down, that's okay. Victor, a little bit more damage to towers, okay. Vlad, this champ almost never gets played. He has like 0 utility and just loses in duels. There's just so many magic resist items that just completely clap him. If you're playing a bruiser top lane a lot of times, like, it's just so hard for him to get through a Hex Drinker, you know, Merc Treads, and then just a big stack of health like a Sterix or something. I don't know if Sterix stacks with Hex Drinker. Probably doesn't. But y'all know what I'm saying. Like, top laners are just going to get like 3,000 health. They're going to have a ton of lifesteal off of all their nonsense, and they can get a magic resist item if they want to. So I just don't see how he stacks up to that. And he just really doesn't apply a lot of pressure early on. Okay, so they're allowing him to use his W without costing as much health. I just don't think it's going to matter. I think it's still going to be rough out there for Vlad. Okay, Yone base armor up a little bit. That's okay. Yone is sort of an interesting champ. I thought he was already being played in pro, and he's like, okay. But sure, a little buff's probably fine. Yuumi. Man, when are they just going to rework this champ? Like, I've been saying it for years. No permanent attachment. Just temporary attachment that gives a really good buff and maybe is on a fairly short cooldown, but just make Yuumi have to hop off every now and then and just rebalance her around that. I think that's the entire thing, is that someone just doesn't have to ever worry about positioning. And they're like marketing Yuumi as, okay, we want this champ to be for like ultimate noobs, right? Is how they're saying they want her to be played, right? They're saying like, all right, you're bringing your friend in who never plays League of Legends, or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever, and you're just trying to get them to feel like they're playing and just tell them to attach to you and then occasionally press some buttons. And so that's really how they want to market it, because they want her for their target audience. But she's not as easy as people think to play at a fully optimal level. I think Freak did a video on this one time. Like, you've got this skill shot. Yes, it is a homing missile. They've made it like harder to hit though. And then you have to like time when to hop off and auto attack to get stuff. So I don't know, man. There's already Soraka and Sona in the game. If you just want like an easy sit back kind of healer, I don't know. I just think that this champ has so much potential to be interesting if she has to hop off and do this little cat and mouse thing and then hop back on. If she can't just permanently stay on people, I feel like she'd be interesting, because that's the problem, obviously, right? Like, that you can't ever target her, and that she gets to like not buy boots, that skips her ahead on items, that she can get 2 combat sums instead of having to take flash. Like, these are all weird things that are unique to Yuumi that are very difficult to balance around. And they've tried to just basically just destroy all of her stats to let her keep those things. But it's like, just freaking let people like detach, make them have to buy boots, make them have to take flash, and then just lower all of her mana costs. You could maybe increase the damage or increase her shielding. Like, because her kit is, you know, can be interesting as long as she's not permanently attached. So, I don't know. That's what I wish they would do. That doesn't seem to be where their mindset is right now. They just are dead set on her being able to permanently attach. So I think she'll continue to be bad. And if she's ever good, they're going to just nerf the hell out of her again. So I feel bad because my daughter was actually wanting me to play Yuumi last night. She's like, oh, play the cat. I like the cute cat. And I think there's a lot of people that would like cute cats, you know. She's definitely has an audience. But unfortunately, they are just militantly like dedicated to her staying permanently attached. I just think it's going to be impossible to balance her in a reasonable way if that's the case. Okay, so Zoomies is down to 10 seconds in all ranks. This is probably good because I think she was maxing Q for a while. I'm not sure. It's been so long since I've seen her. Um, that's okay. I just feel like Enchanter items in general aren't amazing right now. They're okay. Like, they've nerfed Shirelia's, which was something that she could buy that was kind of a core item. Ardent Sensor, they did buff fairly recently, but a lot of the top ADCs aren't doing the on-hit builds. There are some, like Ashe, Jinx will occasionally get like Kraken or Infinity Edge. I guess Zeri's like the classic, like, good champion with Yumi, and she is coming back into the meta, so there are some champs that are historically good with Yumi, especially Zeri, that are kind of rising up lately. The extra heal per hit, that's quite a lot. Isn't that five hits on that? 5 or 6 hits, so man, that's pretty good. I don't know. Maybe we could see her again. What's her win rate right now? I feel like it was pretty bad. It's like 48%. But I don't think you want to blind pick her. I think you want her with very specific matchups. Yeah, people are going Moonstone, Staff of Flowing Water. I don't know. I guess, is Ardent just really that bad? I mean, the fact that Ardent doesn't have ability haste on it is rough. Yeah. She's okay. I guess Mikhail's is probably pretty damn good on her. Because then you've got a cleanse, and you've got all this movement speed and healing and shielding. So yeah, maybe it's Moonstone plus Mikhail's plus Redemption, something like that. Her win rate does go up pretty high. So I don't know. Maybe you can pick her against other enchanters or like just lanes that aren't going to be able to pressure you very heavily. I think she's still going to have problems with hard engage. But again, if you pick her with a really mobile ADC that you can trust, like a Zeri or an Ezreal, something like that, then I think she could be pretty good. But it seems very, very specific. Okay, Lord Dom's getting some item changes. I think this is probably fine. Noon Quiver getting some changes. Okay. Scout Slingshots down a little bit. Static Shiv. Rectrix. Okay, pick. Okay, so this is a smoother build path. That's nice. Okay, and is this what? I don't even remember what this Noon Quiver builds into anymore. Is it building a Kraken? Okay, they're nerfing the AD, so that's rough. But the slingshot stuff, I'm pretty sure this goes into Kraken, right? No, it goes into Shiv. But this is good. Like, this is a nice build path again. So you have these intermediaries. You don't have to sit. It doesn't require very specific back timings. This is good. I mean, Static Shiv people are kind of popping off right now. Zeri's the most notable one. I think, does Kaisa get it? I can't remember. There's several champs. Like, this is a very efficient item. Like, it's not like every champ has to get it, but it's up there competing with, not in raw power with Infinity Edge as far as like scaling, but it gives you a lot of utility. Obviously, the wave clear early on. This turned out to be a pretty high win rate item on certain champs that maybe don't want to rush Infinity Edge. Grudge, okay. First Strike. Now you're getting less gold and less damage amp, so I think this has been a bait for the most part for a lot of ADCs, especially some that aren't like pro level, like Lucian and stuff like that would get First Strike. So I think this is just going to probably make the fleet ADCs or the fleet options on ADCs a little bit better. So almost everybody's just going to go fleet now. But, I mean, I didn't think it was that great on most ADCs to begin with, but I guess there were some that were getting it. But, okay. Alright, well, let's jump over to the support tier list. So not as long. We didn't take 30 minutes. We got it done in 24, but most of that not going to affect the support ADC tier list too terribly much, but there are a couple of notable ones that I'll mention here. So first of all, got to mention Rakan, as always. I still think he's going to be your go-to blind pick. There are some itemization changes that other champs probably benefit a little bit more from than Rakan, but I still think he's pretty good. Now, as usual, he does have a fairly high skill cap, which always sounds a little weird to say because he's one of the safest ADCs, so it kind of depends on what you mean by skill. Like, you can be aggressive, you can, you know, fish for engages or try to, you know, try to get some deep wards on him with some champs that you just can't really do that with a lot of other champs out there. So that does allow him to be a little bit, you know, more reckless with his positioning. But if you sequence your spells wrong, it can be kind of rough because if you get caught, if you get CC'd, he is squishier than some of the other tanks. Although not quite as squishy as some people think with a lot of the contemporary builds on him. Go ahead and pull him up here. So more and more people are kind of moving towards Warmogs on him as well. It looks like Zeke's still has a higher pick rate and a higher win rate right now. Zeke's is particularly good on Rakan, especially after the changes, because he doesn't have a lot of CC after he does his R plus W combo. And it's not even that long of a piece of CC. If you do W first, if you can hit your W first, and then R after that, you know, you'll get like 2.5, 3 seconds of CC. But more often than not, you're having to R and then W in. Now, the other option is if you R and just flash on them or just walk into them first and then W, you can still get your, you know, roughly 2.5 seconds of CC. But a lot of times you might just have to R and then open with your W, in which case the CC is going to overlap. You're only going to get, you know, about a 1.5 seconds of CC there. So what Zeke's does is after you hit that engage, then you can kind of stay with them if you're winning the fight and get that extra slow so that your allies can catch up and land more hits on them. So the slow is particularly good on Rakan because he doesn't have other CC to hold people still. It's also pretty decent for kiting. And it's a very cost-efficient item. I think it's around like 100-something%. So, you know, one of the big problems with Zeke's before was with the mana cost, you just don't need the flat mana, and most tanks don't need flat mana, and I've been saying that for years, and they finally took it off of Zeke's. They still have it on Frozen Heart. I think they should get rid of it there too. I think that any tanks that really want the extra mana can just do the Tear of the Goddess item on something like a Taric, and it's pretty good. But tanks just don't need it, especially since the Enchanter item now gives you some mana regen for free. Or not the Enchanter item, the gold per 5 item, the support item, just comes with free mana on it, whereas it didn't back in the day when you had the Targon stuff. So a lot of tanks just don't need it. And most tanks have been buffed or adjusted over time where their mana costs are really, really low on their abilities. The exception is like Nautilus with his E is still very expensive, but most people don't even max E anymore. They just max the hook, which is relatively cheap. It's really Taric is one of the only ones that has the mana problems, but he can just run tier if he wants to. So, anyways, they at least took it off of Zeke's. It's 102% efficient, so not insane, but good. Just solid item. It does give that extra bit of damage too, so about 250 damage if they're in it the entire time. Usually it's closer to like 150 or 200. And you've got that slow. So overall, still going to be a solid item, but... And Locket is kind of one of the biggest bait items. It has basically the same stats as Zeke's. Zeke's actually has a little bit more flat health on it. And Locket has a little bit more armor and magic resist. But Locket on almost all of these tanks is a very popular item, but for some reason it just always has a lower win rate than either, you know, whatever's the, you know, FOMO item of the patch, whether it's Zeke's, whether it's Warmogs or whatever. The problem, I think, is the decay, and it's really hard to understand decay. I guess mathematically they don't tell you the exact numbers. Or it's like, it's kind of hard to figure that out. I don't know why I'm fuzzy, so sorry about that on the camera. But I don't know. It just feels like you never, like, when you look at the end of the game, most of the time, unless the enemy team has like a group up 5v5 fight with a lot of damage, like a Brand, a Ziggs, and a Moo, you know, something like that, and you're timing your Zeeks really well, most of the time you're just not going to see big numbers on this item, right? You're going to see like maybe like 1500 damage blocked. Because a lot of times you think about a lot of situations where you're going to activate this thing, it's somebody is going to get engaged on, right? Like your ADC is going to get engaged on, or a mage, or you, if you're Rakan, or whatever, and you're just going to pop this, and it's only really going to be effective on like 1 or 2 people. And, you know, off of one person that's getting bursted, yeah, it's going to give them 200, 250 health. But some of that is still going to decay. Even if they're bursting them over 1 second, you're still going to be losing, you know, 50 shield off of this, probably 25 or 50 shield, and then everybody else is going to get almost nothing because it's going to decay over 2.5 seconds. So I feel like it just doesn't put up huge numbers a lot of times unless, like, again, it's a big team fight situation. Now that might still matter, you know, just giving your ADC effectively an extra 200 health during the big fights, that's a big deal. If you combine that with other shields that you have and you combine that with Locket, it's still going to be a good item. I just don't know if it's worth it as, like, potentially a rush item on Rakan. So a lot of people are questioning that a little bit more. It does pair very well if you put it with something like a Redemption second, if you just want to go all in on the team fighting and you're pretty sure that you're going to be able to survive most stuff. Then the extra 15% healing and shielding power does help out with the Locket shield. And then that Locket shield buys enough time for your Redemption to land. So it is really nice. Like that's a classic combo if that's the kind of thing that you want. But if you're just like getting Locket and then just Knight's Vow is a decent combo too. But I don't know. People are just trying out other options, and Zeke's is one that has been a very good offensive, aggressive item that you can still pair with stuff like a Knight's Vow later. Now, the newcomer that people have been looking at is Warmog's. Even on Rakan. I saw a pro player getting this on Rakan. I guess I closed out of the other things. It was just timing out. But the Warmog's adjustment a couple of patches ago, and I've had people ask me about this on the stream. So shout out to, I guess, Delaby and Butter and everyone else that's been sort of asking about this item. I guess I was thinking about how valuable is the regeneration that you get off of this item. Because usually that's what it came down to historically with Warmogs. How difficult is it to activate the regeneration? And how much do you actually need that regeneration? So for a lot of champions, outside of very specific cases like Sejuani, because she gets so many resistances, that health was extremely valuable on her just because of the scaling on resistances and when it's more useful to get health rather than more resistances, all that stuff. Sejuani liked Warmogs, but like most other people didn't really get this because it was only against poke comps as like a third item or something where you really needed this if you didn't have any other sustain. But they have changed it a lot over time to where now it's very easy to pick up that Warmog's bonus. You only need 1300 health. So even on support, this also got buffed where I think it had 800 health. And now they gave it 1000. And they've also given it movement speed in the fairly recent future. Where are the patch changes on this? Am I just like blind? Or is it? It's down here. I just hit scroll. Okay, here we go. So yeah, they gave it on 1410. They gave it 250 extra health, which is a big deal. That's a lot. That's like 700 gold worth of health. And then they gave it 100% extra base health regen. So that's not massive, but it does add up. You know, your health does tick in combat. You know, in a 10-second fight, that is going to give you an extra, you know, whatever, 30 health or something like that. So it's helpful. And then I can't remember when they gave it the movement speed. That might have been a while ago, but it's been so long since this item has been relevant. But, you know, so that is useful against poke. But just look at the raw stats on this thing now. I think that's what people are kind of coming around to is like, okay, just the 1000 health itself is 2,000, you know, almost 2,700 gold worth of value. This is outdated. This has 100% base health regen. It actually has 200, right? Didn't it literally just say it has 200? Okay, so something is a misprint. I don't know. I'd have to go in the game and look. I'm not going to do that right now. That's the least valuable stat as far as like what's actually useful. But if it's 200%, then it's even more valuable. Then it's even 300 gold more valuable, technically. And you get the 5% movement speed, which is 270. So even if it's just 100% base movement or base health regen, which again, it might be more, it's still more than pays for itself. It's over 100% efficient, not including its passives. But the big thing that I forgot about that I was really underappreciating is this 10% bonus movement speed. Basically out of combat. So that's not quite like something like a mobility boots. Mobility boots was like 60, I guess, movement speed over like your traditional 45 movement speed that you would get from normal boots. You're getting 60 extra. I mean, I don't remember if this 10% bonus movement speed stacks with all of your baseline movement speed stuff. So, like, once you get boots, or if you get boots of swiftness or whatever, does it stack? I think it might. If it does, I mean, this is giving you like 30 to 40 extra movement speed out of combat. So it's almost like a mini mobility boots on top of that. So, I mean, that's a lot of value. That's another 500 gold, 600 gold out of combat. And obviously the numbers get absurd when the regen's ticking, right? It's like 15,000 gold worth of regen. It's like, yes. So, but even if you don't step out of combat for 6 seconds, right? Even if you're not dealing with a lot of poke, even if we take all of that away, it's still an item that's giving you just a ton of health. It's already gold efficient, and you're getting, mobility boots just for roaming around. And speed is really, really good on supports. For rotations, getting wards, you have to back all the time to get more wards, all that kind of stuff. Supports probably move around the map more than anybody else out of combat, and so that movement speed is really, really nice. So a lot of tanks are getting this, and Rakan's even getting this sometimes too, even though he has no health scaling in his kit. I don't believe his passive is based on AP, not max health, I think. Just double check that. But there are other things that also scale with max health really well, right? So you've got Guardian, which scales with max health. You've got that rune. I forgot what it is, but the thing that like gives you 3% max health, I think, when you complete it, it's something like that. It might even be more than that. Oh my god, come on. Overgrowth. Which, after the nerf to unflinching, more people are thinking about overgrowth. Your base and bonus health are permanently increased by 3.5%. Okay, so your total health increased by, after reaching 15 stacks, so 120 minions and monsters. So you get 3 bonus health for every 8 monsters. So you get 45 bonus health off of that, and then 3.5% of your max. So if you get to like 3,000 health, which if you get Warmogs and this other stuff, it's, you're going to get up to there. Then you're getting an extra, 150 health or so. So again, it's not like insane, but that's like 400 or 500 gold worth of value there. Guardian scales reasonably well. 8% off of your bonus health, right? So again, if you've got 1,500 bonus health or more, then you're getting an extra 120 on Guardian. So it's nice. There's a lot of stuff. You take something like Conditioning or even Second Wind later on. It's 4% of your missing health, so more health that you have, you're going to be healing more off of it. So there's a lot of stuff that just synergizes really well with max health. And you're also seeing nerf to Blade of the Ruined King. Not a lot of chance of getting it. But that was a max health crusher. And there have been a couple of other things too that are like max health type of items or effects that have been nerfed. So it's a pretty good item. Now, I do think that other tanks that scale off of max health, like Braum and Tahm, which we'll talk about here in a second, I think are probably a little bit better off with this. But it could still potentially be an item on Rakan. Now, the downside is it is expensive. So it's 3,100 gold. and it doesn't do anything necessarily directly to help your allies out, so it's not going to help them survive. But the bonus movement speed, being able to rotate to help out side lanes, to help out vision, all that stuff, the movement speed is indirectly like pretty good. But it just comes down to, you know, do you want to give them the extra 200 health potentially off of the locket activation, which you can only do it once every 90 seconds. And let's be honest, and most of the time in solo queue and YOLO queue, people are not going to be playing around that locket cooldown, and they're just going to be forcing fights. You might accidentally blow it on a small skirmish right before Baron's going to spawn or Dragon's going to spawn or whatever too. You do have to play around that versus Warmogs, you know, always works. Warmogs is like way, way better for personal survivability. It just all comes down to how useful is that shield and kind of the cost effectiveness of things. You don't have to get it first, right? You could get Zeke's and then go Warmog second if you want. I think that was the more like recommended build up here. If you're going to get Warmogs at all, is recommending it second. But the movement speed is obviously good, you know, ASAP. And it is really nice, I'll say, to be able to kind of sustain through lane a little bit more to get a rejuve bead in that build. You know, does help out with some of the early poke champs that are, you know, kind of popular out there right now. So that does help out. But it just kind of depends on what you need. How much do you want that slow and that extra bit of damage versus how much do you want more personal survivability where you can, you know, make more aggressive engages, where you can, you know, maybe even soak up more CC, soak up more poke or damage, you know, eat those karma Qs so your ADC doesn't have to, eat the blitz hook, you know, all of that is really, really valuable, and Warmogs is going to let you potentially survive through that a little bit more. So that's just kind of a new tech that, you know, I was kind of thinking about in the old school way where I was measuring it by how much do I need that regen out of combat. But even if you aren't using the regen out of combat, just the raw stats, the raw movement that you get out of it potentially makes it worthwhile, even if you never really need that regen. And like I said, with the YOLO queue where you're constantly running around from fight to fight, there's fights breaking out everywhere, you're probably going to get some value out of that regen at some point anyways, even if they don't have a pure poke comp. Okay, so that's kind of the new tech. Rakan really still going to be a strong champ, still really good with the engage. That does shore up some of his weaknesses if you do go for the Warmogs. You still have all that utility of the engage, the peel, the shields, all that stuff. But then it's just going to make it a lot more difficult for you to blow up. And having raw health is just kind of good at covering almost all of your bases, right? Like, it's going to be good against magic damage because a lot of magic damage is burst. It's going to be hard to burst you down. And it's going to be good against burst ADs, which are, you know, really popular right now with the Infinity Edge and, you know, some of those other collector, a lot of those champs. Now, it is going to be weaker than armor against heavily sustained, you know, damage. If you're just sitting there taking, you know, 10 Jinx auto attacks, that's going to be worse than if you had something like Frozen Heart. But, you know, it is good against burst, and that's what a lot of people are running right now. It can't really be nullified by things like Lord Doms. There's just not a lot of good stuff that's cutting into health right now, again, because a lot of people are not taking max health stuff. I guess you got Leandries, which is, I believe, max health. So Leandries is going to eat into you a little bit more, but it's not, you know, if they're doing Leandries, that's not burst damage, and if you're taking some poke, just step out, heal back through it, you know, with the Warmog. So it does seem to be working out very well for a lot of champs. Okay. And then we've got Leona. I think she still probably deserves to be near the top in solo queue just because she has so much aggressive engage. It's very low cooldowns. If she's running the Warmog's tech as well, she's going to get a lot of... Yep, she's running it. So she's going to get a lot of value out of that because her W already gives her a lot of armor and magic resist. And a lot of times she's taking Aftershock, which is going to give her even more armor and magic resist. So just putting all that flat health with it. I'm not going to do all the math right now, but just trust me, once you get to very high levels of armor and magic resist, once you have more than like, you know, 100 or so, then getting max health is probably going to be more beneficial for you. So being able to slot in the Warmogs, I mean, look at that win diff there. Now, Warmogs has a much lower pick rate right now, but that's a 7-point difference in win rate, which is very notable. I mean, that's still the second most picked item. And then after that, you can just go for things like Knight's Vow if you want to. Looks like some people are getting Thorn Mail. Again, if you just want like more max health, more armor, that's worthwhile. And I didn't even mention, the 1,300 bonus health. This already gives you 1,000. So really, just off of your runes and your support item, you can probably get to the 1,300 just off of completing this item. And if you're a little bit short, whatever your next item is probably going to involve a ruby crystal. So you could easily just get a ruby crystal and finish it off if you aren't already there. But again, I think with the runes, especially if you take the scaling health runes, and then your support item, I think is going to give you like at least 200 health. So just doing the scaling health rune should easily get you there by the time you complete it. But yeah, really good engage. Tons and tons of CC. Really, Leona's only problem is that she doesn't have a reverse gear. So if you go in and you get counter ganked, it's going to be bad. So make sure you keep that vision up. Having the extra movement speed from the Warmogs is probably going to help with that. Just keep that vision up and just, keep making those engages. And Leona is great at just the YOLO Q as well because, her ult does have a cooldown. It's 90 seconds, right? Which is still a very low cooldown. But you can still kill people even without your ult, right? You just walk up and just stun them and just stick to them. Like, she has some of the lowest cooldown CCs of any tank. I think her Q baseline is like 5 or 6 seconds for like a 1.25 second stun. And then her E, her gap closer, which is usually what you max second, gets down to like a 6 second cooldown too. So, I mean, you can almost have them permanently, once you get a bunch of ability haste, not quite permanently CC'd, but pretty damn close. Like, they're going to be CC'd over half the time. So you can run around and just make a ton of plays with her, which is super helpful. So I think near the top. Now, she's going to have a hard time with some of these other peeler tanks, right? And those are becoming more popular, so got to be careful with that. Like, she's going to have a real hard time, I think, against something like Braum, Tahm. The Nautilus matchup is okay. I think she's like favored early. Nautilus might be a little bit better later. Nautilus has a bit more utility to him. But anyways, I still think just with how durable she is, she's very tanky, even off of very few items, thanks to her W. She does quite a lot of damage early on with her abilities. Very low cooldown. She can engage through the minion wave, which is really nice. With a lot of the other engaged champs, with your like Nautilus, your Blitz, that type of stuff. If they hide behind the minion wave, it's a lot harder to hit them. But Leona can engage through minion waves, and she can just get onto that back line too. So they can't really like eat her CC. Like, you can't just have the the Braum just stand in front and shield all of the CC. Now, he can stop other people from falling up, so that's still a problem. But you can still, virtually guarantee that you're going to be able to lock down the back line if you're actively hitting your R and your E and all that stuff. So, going to be a top tier champ, I think, for solo Q, YOLO Q, type of play. Okay. Blitzcrank still going to be, we talked about him earlier. He did get some nerfs. I still think he's good enough to have him up here. But again, he is kind of matchup dependent. And if you are matched up against Leona, Tahm and Braum still aren't as popular. I'll talk about them in a second. I think they're a lot better than people might suspect right now, especially with the emerging kind of Warmog meta in the bot lane. But people are still playing stuff like your Jannas, your Lulus. People probably trying out Karma a little bit more. And people just love, especially at Emerald Minus, people just love the AP supports. They think you have to carry, with damage a lot of times. So you're still going to see a lot of like Luxes, Zyras, Brands, that type of stuff. And that's where he really thrives, is against those squishy champs. Especially if you're against Jinx, most Caitlyn players, Jhin. A lot of these champs aren't going to have enough movement to really avoid your hook, especially if you have nice vision control. So I would suspect he's probably still on the Warmogs train. Zeke's might be okay on him too, for the same reason as Rakan, where he doesn't have a lot of CC, So once you pull him in, if you want to keep him close or put more damage on him, I could definitely still see Zeke's as being a thing. But the extra movement speed off of Warmogs would be really nice as well. But Blitz is basically the same thing he's been for, 14 seasons. You land your hook, it's going to be amazing. You miss your hook, you're worthless. So high risk, high reward champ, but I still think there's enough squishies out there. Nami's another one that's really vulnerable to hooks that are good. But obviously, if they have tanks or if they have high mobility, you may want to be careful picking him. Okay. And then Tahm and Braum, I've moved up here. I think I may have had Braum up here last patch at tier 2, and I had Tahm lower, but I just wanted to go ahead and put Tahm a little bit higher as well. And a lot of people are going to see Tahm as a potential, and I might be a little biased because I've been playing these champs a lot lately, but they feel really strong, especially with things like Warmogs, because they have health scaling built into their kit. So Tahm is kind of weird because he has a low play rate, and you just never know how often he's getting paired with Senna, with like a fasting Senna build, because he's the most popular one in Pro for fasting Senna. If you don't know what that is, that's basically you've got support Senna, and then you have Tahm Kench as the farmer, pretty much. So Tahm would be getting most of the farm. In that scenario, the Senna would take the support item, and they're just trying to fish for souls. But then later on in the game, I think, and I don't remember exactly at what point this is, but then the Senna starts farming again later on after so much time in the lane, after she's already completed her support item, all that kind of stuff. And then the Tahm gives over the farm later, I believe. But, so I don't know how popular that is in solo queue. So basically that can skew, even though people are queuing up for support, that can affect what you're seeing in terms of what they're building with items and things like that. Who does it say they're good with? Counter, counter, counter. Okay, so it's not really saying a lot of who he's paired with, but it looks like most of the time they're taking a support item. So I think these are actual real support Tahm Kenches that people are doing. So an interesting item on Tahm Kench, and it'd be interesting to see how this stacks up. I mean, I guess we can just look at it here against something like Warmogs. With Tahm Kench specifically, Heartsteel seems to have a better win rate. Now, when you compare this to Warmogs, basically Warmogs, you're going to get 5%. You're going to get a little bit more health than Warmogs, but it also costs a bit more gold. So that's similar, right, in terms of value. But with Warmogs, you're getting the 5% guaranteed movement speed, and you're getting the 10% out of combat. So that's a lot of movement speed we talked about before. And you have the regeneration, which in a lot of fights won't matter, but there might be sometimes, especially when you're rotating from fight to fight, where it will matter. But this item gives you a lot of bonus damage sort of on hit. So, and this is only item health, so this does not affect your runes or your baseline health. It's just health that you get off of items. So if you have 1,000 health off of this just from like your support item and just this item, then it's going to give you like 180 physical damage, and it does give you some extra permanent health. Now you're not going to trigger it that often, but it is going to give you some extra permanent health. Now this is particularly good with Tahm Kench because his auto attacks already do a lot of extra damage, because I think it's like 4% of your max health you do as bonus damage on your auto, stacking up to 3 times. That's 120 extra damage, or 112% of your max health extra damage. So with an item like this, it's going to be close to doing an extra 120 damage on top of the 180 damage here. So you're getting like 300 damage just when you complete this item on your auto attack. And it can trigger on different people. It has a 30-second cooldown per target, and it has to charge up over 3 seconds. But that's a lot of extra damage. So Tahm Kench's auto attacks really start hitting. And that's just off of this item. If you get other big health items, you could potentially do even more damage. So you could get this. I think As you can see, Warmogs is still really popular as well. All of this is like very low sample size, so a lot of people may not have discovered exactly what the best build is right now. So it kind of depends on what you need, but if you want the extra damage on your autos, Heartseeker, Heartsteel might be the place to be, and if you just want the extra movement speed and regen and all that stuff, then Warmogs might be the place to be. So I haven't really tried Warmogs as a first item on him. Typically, I'll get Heartsteel and then Warmogs after that. So those two in conjunction are, super good together. Because now that's another, 1,000 damage off of, or 1,000 health off of items that you get here. So then that's really going to start hitting. That's going to be doing like 300 bonus damage on a hit. But that is pretty expensive to get both those items. But yeah, I like Tahm early on. He does have some innate sustain built into his kit, right? He's got his gray skin, which gives you a little bit of extra sustain. He's got the tongue lash, which heals you for a certain percentage of his missing health. And it applies a stack of acquired taste. Oh, it's 2.5% of his bonus health as extra magic damage, not 4%. 4% may be a little over the top. But it's still really good. So that gives you a little bit of extra sustain off of the gray skin, off of this. If you end up taking, it looks like people are taking Celestial Opposition. I feel like that's weird. Like, it's fine if you get poked on Tahm Kench. You're not going to get bursted out. So I don't know. That feels a little strange to me. Yeah, I don't know why they're recommending it. Like, it's picked less and it has 4% less win rate than Solstice Slay. Now, they changed Solstice Slay. Or maybe they didn't change it, but like the slow applies this. This actually is once you get this, and it's usually a little bit later in the laning phase, 12 to 15 minutes, so almost when the lane's over a lot of times, but it does give a little bit of extra sustain. Now, a problem with this is you're always kind of fishing for hits with your Q whenever you can, and so you can just trigger this when you're already at full health or other people are at full health, so that is a little bit weird. Versus someone like Rakan, when they trigger it, they're usually going for it, right? If you go for your W and you hit it, it's probably going to be an all-in. Versus if you're just trying to land some poke with your tongue with Tahm Kench, then, it might trigger it and you just may not get a lot of benefit. So there's definitely worth considering going Blood Song on Tahm Kench if you think you can get away with it, if you need the extra damage as well. Because he still does get the 10% damage. This Blood Song, I think, was only nerfed mostly for ranged champs. So Spellblade is pretty handy, especially if they have a lot of tanks. But yeah, I mean, Tahm's great. Early on, a lot of damage. That Tongue Lash really scales up. I mean, 280 base damage on this thing, and it does acquired taste as well, which is like an extra 100-ish damage, maybe more, in the early game. This thing starts popping, and it's on a low cooldown. It's got pretty good range. I think it's like 900 range or something, 800 or 900 range. And it only costs 50 mana at all ranks. That's a very, very good poke tool, especially for a tank. Most tanks do not have that kind of poke tool. And if you land that, the slow is brutal. It's like, is it saying here what the slow is? Yeah, 50% for 2 seconds non-decaying slow. So that's huge. So usually if you land this and they don't have a dash, then it's almost guarantees that you're going to land your Abyssal Dive. And this is a very good engage tool, right? I mean, this is like Rakan Knockup. It does have a bit more of a delay, and it's got a longer cooldown, so it is easier for the enemy to dodge, but it's got more range on it once you get more points in it. And just if you land this, they're probably dead, right? Because you land your Tongue Lash, you land Abyssal Dive on them, you just auto-attack them a couple of times, and you're going to be doing a lot of damage. Remember, his auto attacks really hit. Rory, I'm in the middle of recording. What is it?
Do you want to go out in the pool with me and Mom?
Okay, maybe in just a little bit. I got to finish recording, and then I might stop by out there. Okay, thanks for letting me know. Hey, can you close the door real quick for me?
Okay.
Thanks.
You don't want Rowan to come in here and mess up your recording?
Okay. Well, yeah, just to keep it kind of quiet, too. Okay, so anyway, so does a lot of damage, has a lot of kill pressure potentially early on if you're letting your Tongue Lash. This is a great setup for things like a Gen W. If you land your Abyssal Dive, like Jinx can throw traps on top of it, Caitlyn traps. Like, there's a lot of good combos with this stuff. So, does a lot of damage early. Very good at sustaining through poke because of the tongue lash, because of the E, second wind. If you decide to go for Warmogs or even Heartsteel, you can get an early Reju beat as well. Solstice Slay. There's just so much regeneration now for him. And obviously has the best anti-CC peel in the game, right? This is just a get out of jail free card for pretty much anybody that gets CC next to you. So amazing for Ash arrows, Malzahar ults, just any kind, like Leona, all engages, Nautilus missiles. If you're close to somebody, it's just basically impossible to burst them out through a Tahm Kench shield. And you can use this offensively as well, where it does quite a bit of damage. And you can just spit them out right in front of your ally and just hand off the damage to them. So it's good, if you want to be aggressive with it, if you want to be defensive with it. The cooldown is actually pretty low now as well. It can get down to 80 seconds. I really wish that it refunded you some cooldown if you used it offensively instead of defensively, but maybe that'd be OP, especially for like top lane Kench. But yeah, he's really good. I mean, his downsides are his engage later on is a little bit sus, right? So you can tongue lash and then abyssal dive on top of people, but that is going to hurt your ability to peel for an ally. So if you're winning really hard, or you have an ally that can kind of avoid stuff and take care of themselves, like a Zeri or an Ezreal or whatever, you can be up there on the front line, doing some damage, CC and enemy tanks, trying to disrupt the enemy AD carry. Before the AD carries get like 3 items, you can usually solo them, right? Especially if your ult is up. You just walk up, tongue lash them, auto attack them a couple of times, eat them, just wait on your tongue lash to be back up, spit them out, tongue lash them, just keep autoing. He can 1v1 a lot of AD carries or squishy mages. So that's another thing I really like about him is like, he has a lot of damage. Like for a tank, he's probably one of the highest damage tanks in the game that you can play reasonably as support. I mean, obviously Cassante and stuff like that in the top lane, but as a support, he does a lot of damage on almost no items because of his acquired taste. So really, really good champ. I've been very impressed with him lately, but we'll go ahead and move on because I know his tier list is already going to be pretty long. This is just kind of some newer stuff that I've been working on, experimenting with, that I just wanted to share with you guys. Braum is another one that is really good and kind of popping off right now. I think he's a little bit less of a secret than Tahm Kench. I think, again, the big thing that a lot of people who haven't played Tahm in a long time might not respect is just how dangerous he is in the early game. Just how much damage he puts out. It's a lot. And that's pretty new, because old school, he just didn't really do a lot of damage in the early game, but now he definitely does. So, again, he doesn't... If the enemy has a lot of ranged, and they're just blasting you with a high amount of sustained damage, Jinx rockets, Way, just constantly throwing in a bunch of nonsense, all that kind of stuff, he's going to struggle against that. And you can't really, reliably engage on their backline, and that's the problem. And his CC is somewhat limited, right? He does not have a lot of CC. You can get people out of their CC, but you just don't have the same kind of lockdown, nowhere close to someone like a Leona or a Nautilus or even a Rakan. So you're kind of sacrificing heavy CC for, best in-game peel, basically, from burst at least, and just a lot of damage. A lot of slows. You do have a stun. It's just a lot of it. You have a stun off your tongue lash if they already have 3 stacks of acquired taste, and you have a knock-up off your W. But a lot of it is, somewhat conditional, and the enemy can outplay it more in different situations. Okay. So Braum is another one that I've been playing quite a bit lately, and I don't even think I've been playing him that well, to be honest. There are a lot of different ways you can sequence his abilities, and you do, if you're really trying to play him at a fully optimal level, holding that shield and knowing the right abilities that you're looking for to put up your shield, because a lot of enemies will try to bait you into using that early, and they'll save their ultimate or whatever they're trying to do and not run it into your shield. So there's always a little bit of a cat and mouse game. You have to have a little bit of reaction time and just reading enemy abilities and that kind of stuff. So it's sort of like Janna, where if you're really trying to peel with Janna's Tornado or her R, it's got to be you got to kind of be waiting for the ability. You can't just strictly react. You have to be like looking and watching for certain things. It's similar with Braum in that shield. You don't just want to throw it up immediately in a fight. I mean, it's probably not horrible if you do, depending on the comp, but you really want to be waiting for those like Misfortune ult, Twitch ult, Brand ult, that type of stuff to get the really big mitigation. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be one of the highest win rates there, although it's a lower pick rate. People forget Braum, like, his scaling with health is not as high as Tahm Kench in terms of his damage output, but his Q does scale based on your max health. So it is 2.5% of Braum's maximum health. That's bonus health and baseline health. So Warmog's not only is going to give you all the benefits we talked about before, but it's also going to increase the damage on this. You know, it's going to give you like 25 extra damage on your Q, which is nice. That's like 7% extra damage or so. So Braum, extremely good in team fights, lots of CC. It is somewhat conditional, right? It's not, you know, snap CC like you see on Leona, Nautilus, that type of stuff, but he puts this out on everybody over time. And in the mid game, like at level 7, it's 1.5 second stun, and I don't remember the cooldowns exactly on this, or like, oh, right here, 6 seconds at level 6. So you can probably trigger this multiple times in a fight. So it's pretty good damage, kind of like Tahm Kench, 275 base, has a 2-second slow, and does pretty good damage, and has a low cooldown, what I meant to say, like 8 to 6 seconds. So very cheap mana wise. You can just constantly spam this, fish for it. It's similar to Tahm. It's going to set up very well for, you know, Gen Ws or just any other kind of CC that you might have. Ash arrows. It's very, very good if you hit it. Nice range, about 1,000 range. So that's good. He gives himself extra armor, and he gives his ally a lot of extra bonus armor as well, which is handy. This also gives you mobility, which is really nice. Now, you can only jump to allies. You can't jump to wards, so that's kind of sad, but it does give you some mobility, so it allows him to escape, especially if you pair him with someone else who's really mobile, you know, like Aziri, Ezreal, something like that, even Jhin trying to run away. And sometimes you can just, you know, cast a Q on them, throw up your shield, just eat a bunch of their hits, and then if the ADC hopefully has a brain and has already gotten away, you know, hopefully they'll come back and just let you get that jump to get away. So that's handy. The Unbreakable is a very unique ability that just blocks all incoming projectiles. So if they have a lot of projectiles, especially that AoE stuff, right, the Twitch ultimate, Misfortune ultimate, Samira ultimate, just Sivir's boomerangs bouncing around everywhere, you know, he can soak a whole lot of damage off of that thing. So that's really handy. Also eats like a brand ult. There's a lot of very, very good uses to Unbreakable out there. So really strong, unique ability. Makes it almost impossible to trade with him if you're protecting somebody, you know, especially in an ADC one-on-one fight. You're almost always going to win if you land a Q and then your ADC goes in, you jump to him with a W, and then use your Unbreakable. It's really nice. Or, I mean, another sequence you could do is you don't even jump to him. You just do Unbreakable first, you know, use up all of your shield, and then use your W to give the extra armor. Because that is something that's a little weird, is if you shield to somebody and then do Unbreakable, it does give you the extra armor, but you're already blocking mostly for them for the duration of Unbreakable. So then after it falls off, they're not going to have the bonus armor when the enemy can hit them again. So that's what I'm talking about. Just like little things that, little optimizations that I kind of think of that I don't necessarily do all the time in fights. Sometimes I just press the buttons, you know, while I'm learning them. But learning when to do that shield, how to sequence your abilities, should you hold your W, should you use it to gap close and do your shield, all that kind of stuff is nice. And then chaining together your CC with your ultimate. It's not a huge amount of CC, but it's pretty good. It's a knock-up. It's a line effect. It's on a fairly low cooldown. You can engage with it, but the animation is a little awkward. Like, it's kind of easy for a lot of people to dodge it. So typically you want to at least land your Q first, and ideally you're going to wait till somebody gets stunned off of your passive and then hit them with it. But extremely good at peeling. Does a lot less damage than Tahm Kench does, but also has a lot more peel and mitigation than Tahm Kench does, and has a lot more CC in team fights. I mean, the fact that you can spread this to everybody and get 5 people stunned for 1.5 seconds every 6 seconds is pretty massive. So, yeah, I think Tahm is really good, especially against other engage champs. So things like Nautilus, Leona. Rakan is kind of hit or miss because Rakan can kind of run through your shield, but you can also block most of the stuff that's going to be coming in after that. So he does kind of have a problem if they have a lot of melee that just ignore your shield and just run in, right? So like Camille flying in or whatever on your ADC. I think you can probably block her little jump kick, but she's still just going to jump on your ADC and blow him up. He's still pretty good. Okay, and we got to go faster because we're basically out of time here. But Nami, still going to be really good as well. She did get some buffs last patch. Her win rate was going up to like, 52, 53%. So I think she's probably the highest enchanter right now in most ELO brackets win rate wise. And a lot of that's just because she can be so aggressive and she has a lot of kill pressure early on, right? Obviously very good with Lucian. But there are a lot of other champs, even things like, Jhin, if you land a bubble or he lands his W, you can chain it together. You can throw his E when he's ulting, and then his ultimates are going to do that extra little bit of damage with the E. It's good with other casters as well. They just like to kind of spam abilities on people. The E can be pretty good. Then you have your R, which is a really good, very good disengage tool because it not only slows people down but speeds up your allies. And it's a pretty good follow-up engage tool. It's really hard to hit it naked on people because it's got a large animation and moves very slowly. Some people are just like, I've had people spam ping me when I play Nami. They're like, cast the wave, cast the wave. It's like 1,000 range against Ezreal. It's like, dude, I'm not wasting it. They're going to dodge it. Like, you have to have something, at least slowing them with your E first before you cast the wave. But it's really ideal if you have someone else on your team that can engage. Ash Arrow, Viol, something like that, and you do the wave to kind of follow up. But she's pretty good, especially if you rush Mandate early on. The way that the slow on Mandate works with your E in particular, but also, with your Q and your R to a lesser extent, puts out a lot of damage. So really good, particularly early game. Has the potential for hard CC. Most enchanters don't have that. That bubble's 1.5 second knock up hard CC if you can land it. Most other enchanters just have slows early on. Or, CC that's much lower in duration. But yeah, very good. Janna, still going to be strong. Good at peeling a lot of these engaged champs. So things like Leona, Nautilus, very good with those kinds of things. Can still get outscaled by some other enchanters potentially. So like your Sona, your Soraka, probably going to outscale you to some extent. Very good against Rakan too. But does have weaknesses against Blitzcrank if you get hooked. Can have problems against heavy sort of poke lanes because her shield is on a long cooldown early on and it's not that big early on in the game. And she has no engage, right? So, if you're up against an enemy Jinx or Twitch or some other like massive long-range menace, it's going to be a problem. But if you have the higher scaling ADC, if you have the Jinx, if you have the Twitch, then she is good. She does give some extra AD to that has been nerfed over time, but she gives some extra AD to the AD carry. Things like a Twitch, Jhin, stuff like that can be handy. But someone like Lulu is probably going to give more offensive power if that's something that you're in the market for, rather than Janna. But Janna's still excellent at peeling, good at buffing up allies, really obnoxious to try to get through her to save people. So she's kind of the enchanter version of Braum and Tahm. Have them on the same tier, but I have them slightly higher just because I think the itemization is a little bit better on Braum and Tahm. And they aren't the best at engaging, but they're better than Janna at trying to force fights, in my opinion. They can also ward better. That's the big problem. Like Janna can get away, and she can ward better than some of the other enchanters, like Lulu, Sona, Soraka. She's got enough peel to kind of protect herself, but you get caught off guard, you're still just going to get deleted by the Kha'Zix if you try to ward that bush and he jumps out of it invisible. It's going to be a problem. Versus like Braum and Tahm can probably survive for quite a while and get to help even if they get jumped while they're out trying to ward. So I think their vision control is going to be a little bit better. Okay, and that's pretty much it. I did move Poppy up into B tier. I know that some tier lists, I think skill capped actually had her in S. I think that's a little bit troll right now, but Poppy is seeing a little bit of pro play. She would probably like something like a Warmog's. She is very good against if a lot of mobility ADCs start to become a bit more popular. Especially something like Zeri. She's going to be good into that. In pro play, she's usually picked into things if she's played support like Callista primarily, who's kind of garbage right now in solo queue at Emerald Minus. So she's just very matchup specific. But obviously going to be good against like a Leona, Nautilus, Rakan, a lot of these champs that need to dash in there. She's going to struggle, I think, against like Braum or Tahm. She does have pretty high sustained damage if you get off a lot of Qs. She can have a lot of CC. It is conditional, but if you like tackle people into the wall and then knock them up with your R, that's going to be a pretty good CC chain. And then of course you have the unique ability to just completely knock people out of the fight. So if you have a lot of other champs that can engage and really stick to people and force fights, stuff like an Ashe or just some kind of thing that applies a lot of slows or CC or whatever, and you can knock one or two people out of a fight, that's big. Or if you're trying to, contest an objective, a bear and a dragon or whatever, and you can manage to knock the jungler out, obviously that's a big play. So she has a lot of like really big, unique, special things she can do. It's just a lot of it is very situational. Like usually you have to hit a skill shot, or they have to miss position or whatever. Like they have to be close to a wall, or you have to wind up for a second and then hit the jungler with your ult, or they have to rely on dashes. But if they, check some of those boxes, she is pretty good. She has a lot of survivability, pretty good damage, and can really shut down a lot of mobility if that's something that your team really needs. Nautilus I have a little bit lower. He does have a lot of CC, but he is squishier. Warmog's helps a lot with that. His shield does scale off of max health on his W. It's not a very high amount of scaling. I think it starts at like 9%, but it's still better than nothing. So I think he's going to like that a lot. And then he already has so much utility in his kit. I think it's going to be okay if you don't have Locket to give your team. He really, really needs that personal survivability more than almost anybody else, because he is one of the squishiest popular tanks that are out there. So still going to be good. His damage is still extremely low. He is going to struggle into other sort of defender type of tanks, your Tahm, your Braum, just champions that can peel really well, but he can take over. If you're landing those hooks, very reliable CC on the ultimate, lots of knockups and displacement, so plays around Mercury treads really well. He's going to be great. Alistar does get played in pro. If you want to do like really early tower dives, level 6, he's going to be good. He has very long cooldowns. I think he can kind of fall off later, but if you just want to be hyper aggressive, and for some reason you just don't want to play Rakan, as far as engage, I just feel like Rakan does a lot of what Alistar wants to do, but just has a lot more utility. But Alistar can work. Like I said earlier with Karma, like you can poke, but with a lot of these champs going kind of the Warmog type of build, if they're getting a reju beat early, especially if they have like Solstice Slay or other innate just kind of sustaining their kit, it is very hard to poke them out. Particularly if they're going to get Mercury treads, and a lot of them will if you have any other magic damage on your team. She definitely can struggle a little bit there. But, if you're able to push and poke in, especially against other enchanters that might struggle against poke early on, like your Jannas, your Lulu, stuff like that, can still be pretty good. Okay, and that's all I'm going to cover here, just because, again, this is already a super long video, longer than I intended for it to be. But that's going to be it. Thanks. Have a good day. Be sure to like and subscribe. Consider becoming a member if you want to help support the channel, or at least turn off the ad block. I'll never run mid-rolls on you, and it does help out. Sling me a couple of pennies every now and then if you enjoy watching a lot of the content. But thanks, that's it, and I'll see you next time.